Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted more love and a better relationship, then do we have the More Love, Less Conflict show for you. Today I'll be talking with psychotherapist, relationship expert, and best-selling author Jonathan Robinson, the author of over 12 books, including The Experience of God, Find Happiness Now, and his new relationship-boosting book, More Love, Less Conflict. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about a communication playbook and tools for couples. That plus we'll talk about traveling to India for a thank you, knocking on doors while hitchhiking, Charles Schultz and chocolate, Mr. and Mrs. Wonderful, self-empathy and camping in the rain, what in the world is a mother trigger, and what does it mean to spoon till you tune? So welcome to the show, Jonathan. Are you ready to shine?
Absolutely.
Woohoo! So before we dive right into things, I can't resist, so completely off topic, but how did you come to write your first book, The Experience of God?
Actually, I was talking to a friend and she said, God told me to do this certain thing. And I said, well, how'd you know it was God? And what she said struck me as so funny that I couldn't believe it. And it made me realize that everybody experiences or tunes into God or higher consciousness in different ways. So I decided to ask everybody from the late Mother Teresa to the Dalai Lama how they tune into God. I asked 40 people and got all their answers in one book to try and get the best stuff in one book. And that's how that book came about.
And did you have at that point any communications with God?
Yes, I did. In fact, God told me to do the book. So, that's how it, and that's why it happened is I got a lot of help.
So awesome and a mighty woohoo! So and God told us to do this show as we were wandering around, going, what in the world do we do next? And we're now in every country and 800 some odd episodes in. So I get it. How did you transform from that experience?
Well, say that question again. I'm not sure if I got it correctly.
How did you interviewing 40 people?
Yeah.
On the experience of God and communicating with God, to me, had to be quite profound. How did it transform you?
Well, it was very wonderful to meet some of these people and see what they were like in person. And one of the things I ended up doing with them is I also asked them not only what's your best way to find inner peace or God, but I also asked them what's your best tip for having loving relationships. And whether it be Oprah or Dalai Lama or Deepak Chopra or Ram Dass, whoever I was interviewing, they had some really good methods, a lot of methods I'd never heard about. So not only did meeting them make an impact, but really what made them more of an impact was learning really simple methods that really, really worked. Because these people didn't get to where they were just by luck. They got there because they have a lot of skill in certain areas.
Now, had you always been interested in relationships? And forgive me for saying this, but oftentimes we get in our fields out of what we call me search.
Absolutely. I was a very depressed, shy kid that grew up in a totally dysfunctional family. So I had my midlife crisis around age 12 and got into self-help books, got into meditation by 13. First learning how to heal myself. And then it occurred to me, well, I have all these tools. Maybe other people would benefit from them as well. So that's how I got into it.
Awesome. So let's go from there. We're going to dive into the meat of things. And you have so many phenomenal tools in your book. And I love it because it comes from such a caring, heart-centered, or I like to say open-hearted or cracked open place. Let's talk about chapter 1, what the world needs now. What is Q?
Q, well, actually, that came from Oprah. One of the times I was on Oprah, I asked her, how did you go from, poor Black in a living environment that never even had running water, much less a toilet, and go from being raped twice by the time you're 14 to the most loved person on earth? It makes no sense to me. How did that happen? And she said, well, it was all about showing that I cared, that I understood people, and that I had empathy for them. And I realized care is C, U is understanding, E is empathy. Those are the things we really want. That's our cue to be on cue.
And so, as we go through life in this conversation here or with a spouse or partner, if we can remind ourselves, at least in our better moments, to have care, to have understanding, and to have empathy for one another.
Yeah, that's a target. That's what everybody's wanting. And most people don't know how to give it to others, and most people are not getting it from others. So the good news is that we're terrible at it. I say it's good news
Room for
because
improvement.
the room for improvement is amazing, and people are often amazed that once they learn this, how much their life changes very, very quickly.
Awesome. And that's what we're going to get into here. In fact, let's talk about Arjuna, our dog. And I'm probably not pronouncing Arjuna's name right. Please forgive
Yeah,
me. Just like me.
yeah. Well, I don't know about you, Michael, but I have a very judgmental mind, and judgment is not what gets you to love. So if you want to be loving, one of the things you need to do is let go of your judgments. So when I'm judging people, I'll say those three magic words. They're doing that just like me. Meaning, somebody cuts me off on the freeway. Well, sometimes I'm a careless driver, or somebody sometimes says something rude. Sometimes I say something rude. So that helps to lessen judgment. And when you can let go of your judgments through whatever method, what's behind it is love and compassion.
Beautiful. And on that note, what's it mean to tune in, for instance, to your wife's positive intention?
Yeah, well, uh, I've been married over 20 years, and sometimes my wife don't let her know this. This is just between you and me, Michael.
We'll
But
keep this quiet.
yeah, sometimes she does annoying things, and and if I think that she's trying to annoy me or something like that, then I get very judgmental. But if I think, well, why is she complaining? Oh, she's complaining because she's not feeling good and she really wants to feel better. That's her positive intention. Or why did she say that? Well, maybe it wasn't to hurt me, maybe because it was she felt hurt and she's trying to be heard. So when you see the positive reason, what are people trying to get? That makes it easy to not feel so judgmental about them.
Fantastic. And going from the word positive there, I love this by Dr. John Gottman, the ratio of positive to negative comments.
Yeah. The best predictor of how happy a relationship is the ratio of positive to negative comments. And, you may have heard this that our minds are like Velcro for negativity and Teflon for positivity. So, once again, don't tell my wife this, but I actually have Siri on my iPhone remind me to tell my wife a appreciation every single day.
Very, very cool.
And it if you just complete this sentence, something I notice about you I appreciate is like we've known each other about 15 minutes,
Mhm.
but something I've noticed that I appreciate about you already, Michael, is you're a very curious guy. You're really into this, and you're also very helpful in terms of telling me what you would be doing and what to expect. So you're a really good communicator, and it's noticeable because not everybody that does these shows is. So I appreciate that.
Well, something that I appreciate about you, Jonathan, and we've known each other about 15 minutes, is just how heart-centered you are and how much you're peeling away layers of the onion. You're not just thinking of the audience, but you're thinking of me. You're thinking about I'm always thinking about how can I make a friend? How can I make your day? You are reciprocating completely at a very, very high level. And I believe you do that with everybody you meet.
Thank you. I try to. It just makes life more fun. And when you share appreciations like this, a lot of times we're thinking them, but we're not saying them. And when you say them, people feel closer and life goes better.
Woohoo! So going from there, in a sense, by opening up like that, I feel like I used to have a coyote for just over 17 years. Her name's Pumpkin. And she taught me so much in life. But one thing that she taught me is when you can flop on your back and show your belly.
Yeah.
And in this exercise, that's what we're doing, isn't it? We're showing vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think today where there's so much busyness and so much superficial forms of communication, I call I call these, once again, WMDs, which are not weapons of mass destruction, but widgets of mass distraction.
Hmm.
Our iPhone, even Facebook, texting, email, all those things, they're very superficial forms of communication. And yet, what we really want is depth and love and connection. So, the question is, what are the tools to do that? Like, take another simple tool, like the sentence, if you really knew me,
Yes.
you would know blank. Now, as I reveal that stuff, like, for example, if you really knew me, you'd know that on these shows, I sometimes worry that I'm coming off too much as a salesman because I really believe in this stuff. I see it change my life and other people's lives. I'm hoping people aren't thinking, this guy's like, a used car salesman or something. So if you really knew me, you'd know that I don't like to come off that way, but I want to get the message out. So that's one thing.
Awesome. And if you really knew me, you would know that not only am I 800 and it doesn't, that's going to sound like ego too, some odd number of shows in, I still have butterflies before each show. And I'm still there a few minutes beforehand going, how is this going to go? What am I going to, blah, 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 blah. And then I just get to quiet and drop the mind and go, let it all go. Just
Yeah,
let it go.
that's great. And when people connect in this way, if you look at the word intimacy, the instructions are actually in the word, into me see. So as you reveal stuff about yourself, people feel closer to you. And we have kind of lost that art of being able to do that well. And what we need are these very simple tools and reminders that help us to get back to that place.
Yeah. I'm going to share another, if you knew me well, because it was an epiphany in my life just yesterday. And that is, I did a bicycle race. Used to be a pro cyclist. I did a bicycle race for the first time in 15 years. It had been tearing me up. There's bike racing all around me, literally finish lines at almost my front door. It's bizarre how universe has been lining this up. And I'm saying, finally, I will do this. I will heed the call. I will go into a race trained but completely ill-prepared, and we will see how it goes. And why is my gut tearing me up so much? I did the race. I finished near the very, very back. And I had the most blessed, beautiful, heart open experience because I was not the person coming from the egoic place he used to be. And I'm basking in the glow of knowing that the place just doesn't matter. I was going through the race going, how can I come to this with more kindness and compassion for my fellow athletes?
That's beautiful, and when you come from love, you create love around you. And I think we need the technologies that are so simple to get back to the place of love and peace within that we will do it because I don't know about you, but I'm pretty lazy. So I'm always looking for methods that actually can work in under 10 seconds or less. That's my forte. That's what got me on Oprah a bunch. And I find that I will use those methods and that they really can make a difference in your relationships. That's not just your intimate relationship. The same stuff works in your child rearing, with your kids, with your coworkers, with your friends, because we're all human and we all like the same stuff.
So let's talk about one of those 10-second ones. And this is a 10-second one that you learned in probably days, if not weeks of travel, going to visit a guru in India for a 10-second or less tip.
Yeah. Well, I say in the More Love, Less Conflict book that one of the keys to having a long-term relationship is not taking your partner for granted and feeling grateful. Gratitude is a real heart-opening key. So a friend of mine went to India and he said that he got this magical mantra to help him feel incredible gratitude towards his wife and kids. And I said, well, would you tell me what it is? And he said, no, you're going to have to go to India yourself. I thought, no, damn, but I really want the best method. So I travel 18,000 miles to India. Have you ever been to India?
I have not, and there is a very strong pull at this point. And this adds to it, though.
Yeah.
It's quite the story.
It's a long way to get there. So I finally get there. You take a rickshaw for 3 hours. I have to wait in line for 4 hours to meet the guru. Finally get to him. I say, what's this magical mantra to help me tune into feeling grateful for my wife and my friends and such? And he says, in an Indian accent, Ah, yes, my mantra is the most powerful mantra on earth. He leans in to whisper into my ear and he says, whenever possible, repeat these words. The mantra I give you are the words, thank you. Well, I look at him, I go, that's it? I traveled 18,000 miles to get thank you? That's it? And he says, no, that's it is the mantra you have been using. That makes you feel like you never have enough. My mantra is thank you, not that's it. That's it will take you nowhere. Well, I'm still pissed off. So I look at him like, sarcastically. I go, well, thank you. And he looks at me and he says, thank you is not the mantra. You must say it from your heart many times a day. So when you see your partner in the morning, say thank you. When you see your child or a sunset or a pet, say thank you from your heart many times a day, and soon you'll be filled with gratitude. So since I traveled all that way, I figured I'd actually do what he said. So, I end up getting on Skype with my wife. And first I think thank you for my computer. And then I think thank you for Skype, that I can talk to somebody on the other side of the planet for free. That used to take 30 years, And then I see my wife and I think thank you. I really feel it in my heart. And then she shows us that our dogs are good. I think thank you. And within like 3 minutes, I have tears of gratitude going down my face. And she says, wow, that must be some mantra. And I said, yeah, it really works. So little things can sometimes make a big difference.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So from there, let's talk about Vive la Différence. And this was fascinating to me. I love this one. And I was thinking of John Gray when I read this one, which is an experiment you did with, we'll call them Matthew and Michelle, to role play on masculine and feminine.
Yeah. Men and women in general want different things in their communication. So you kind of have to learn. We're taught one language in America, and that is the language of blame, shame, and complain. That's the language we're given. And I don't know about you, Michael, but blame never works for me. I never tell my wife everything she's doing wrong. And then she comes back and says, my gosh, I see it now. Thank you for showing me the errors of my ways. I will have to change now. That's never happened. 0 for 1,000 on that one. Mm-hmm. So since blame doesn't work, the question is what does work? Well, in general, with women, what women want most is empathy and understanding. So if you learn to give them that, they will give you what you want. Now, a lot of times when women talk about their day and the difficulties, men immediately try and fix it. And women hate this. In my office, that's the number one complaint, that they never really listen to me. They're just always trying to fix me. So, men think they're being helpful, but they're not. They're not giving them what they want. And men, often what they want is to feel like a hero. That's what all the action movies are about. How's the guy is a hero? And the way women communicate often is the exact opposite of that. They tell them what the men are doing wrong. And men hate that because their whole goal in life is to be a hero. So I talk about how to speak to men and women differently. And when you learn this, it's amazing the results that you get. Look at Oprah. She's the most loved person on the planet. And basically all she does is she gives people empathy. It can take one skill can take you pretty far.
Woohoo! Can the man give as much empathy as the woman, or does he run the risk of moving out of his hero place into someplace else?
Well, I can speak Spanish without becoming a Mexican or a Spaniard. So you look at the person in front of you and you communicate in a way that's going to foster goodwill and love with them. I speak to my dogs all the time, but I don't, give them complicated instructions. And the same with children. I don't speak to a 4-year-old the same way I speak to a 40-year-old. So you want to learn little subtleties that most people don't actually know or use. And when you do, you realize, wow, this is going a lot better.
Can you share with us, and it's going to differ from couple to couple, but what is an example of a subtlety?
Well, like for example, when women are talking to men, to speak in terms of what you would love for them to do.
Mhm.
Like, here's a phrase I tell women to use. You know, honey, it would make me so happy if you would blank.
Oh, then we want to be the hero.
Exactly, exactly. Or men when they are talking to women to say, um, boy, it sounds like you really had a tough day. That must have been really frustrating. Speaking in terms of emotions, because women are, in general, more emotional creatures than men. You know, men, for the last 300,000 years, basically were killing animals. You know, if you're killing animals all day, it's not really good to be that empathetic. But women like empathy. That's what makes them feel safe. So we want to make each other feel safe so that we can get back to the place of love, which is what we want.
Thank you. Awesome. On that note, talking about communication here, what do you tell somebody if they've read your book, and I find it to be a brilliant book and it's filled with amazing tools, and the partner goes, I just wish I could get my spouse to read this thing? What do we do?
Actually, it's not a problem. You know, in they have the term "it takes two to tango." And if you're dancing, you need a dance partner who knows what they're doing. But I have found one really good communicator can change everything. Because if I ask you a good question,
Mhm.
if I say, Michael, what helps you to feel really loved by me? Or what, you know, if I was a woman, or Michael, what do you really love to do? You're not going to say, bug off. You're asking me these horrible questions. That's not going to happen. People like talking about the things that are important to them. And when you ask good questions or when you give empathy, if I say something like what I appreciate about you, it's very likely you're going to say something that you appreciate about me. So it really only takes one person to read the book to change the nature of a relationship. And that's good news because a lot of times your partner does not want to read the book, and that's fine.
Gotcha. So let's go from there into you were talking about things with your wife earlier, and we're not going to go there. But how do we turn button pushing into
Yeah.
something positive?
Yeah. Well, you know, we all have these. I used to tell people, if I paid you 500 bucks, could you make your partner upset in under a minute? And everybody says, yeah, I don't need a dollar. That wouldn't take me a minute. It'd take me 5 seconds. I just bring up, you know, this subject. Well, um, we not only have emotionally upset buttons, but we also have love buttons, what I call ways of charming each other's heart. And you want to find out what those are. Like, I know how to quickly charm my wife's heart. But more importantly, I know what are her triggers. I know what those buttons are. And I like to avoid them. I do not like stepping on landmines. It's not been one of my favorite hobbies. And she also knows what my triggers are. The reason we know this is because one day we had a talk about it. So there's an exercise in the book. What are your 5 biggest triggers? Okay, I'll try to avoid those unless I need to, you know, talk about them. She knows mine, I know hers. We avoid them, and that's helped us not have an argument in 5 years.
Wow. And you are both, is she a couples relationship expert too?
No, she is a therapist, but she doesn't focus on couples. She focuses on other stuff.
Is a dynamic of two therapists in a relationship mean that 5 years without a fight is even like exponentially greater than we can imagine?
Yeah, you know, a lot of therapists have a really hard time, but one way we've avoided fights is just by saying 2 words. And the 2 words are red light.
Yeah.
And it's an agreement we have between each other that if either of us is getting upset and we're starting to like raise our voice, either of us can say the words red light, and we have to take a 2 minute time out and just be quiet together. And when we don't have that momentum of upset, then what happens is we calm down and we can get back to our rational brain, rather than our lizard brain, and we can work things out. So little things like that have made a huge difference in our own relationship.
Is there another exercise that you've done together, or maybe even do as a ritual on a regular basis?
Well, one time I got a call from a friend and he said, "Did you see the Tonight Show last night?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, Jay Leno was talking all about your book and the spoon tune thing." I thought he was kidding, but I tuned in the next night and he was talking about again. He said that this one exercise saved his marriage. And what it is you spoon. Now, spooning is like a reverse hug, the man's front to the woman's back,
Mhm.
and you just hold each other in that way, or you can hug and you just breathe together in unison, both inhale and exhale at the same time. And that helps you to calm down really, really quickly and de stress and gets you on the same wavelength. And Jay Leno said it saved his marriage. And a lot of people have said that the spoon tune, which is what I call it, uh, has been a ritual that they do every night after they come home from work, and it makes it so that they don't argue and that they can really connect in a quick way. Uh, and I like it because it's also a touch way. You know, in this culture, we have two basic forms of touching: sex and nothing. Now, even apes have figured out a way to have everybody touch each other because, you know, babies will die if they are not touched. So if you're not having sex with somebody regularly, then you're touch deprived. And we need to figure out ways of, you know, giving each other shoulder massages or holding hands or spooning or hugging. And so I talk about some nonverbal ways to create more love and less conflict as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I know for myself, if I'm getting nervous, anxious, worked up, what we found over the years is kind of a Temple Grandin kind of exercise. Jessica will take and just run her fingers through the back of my hair, and I'm just like, oh.
Yes, yes.
And it completely turns off the amygdala response. I go from you lose so many IQ points when you go into the fight, flight, or freeze mode, but instead I just lose IQ points because I just go into mush.
Yes.
And from mush you can rebuild anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my mush points too. And you want to know what your partner's mush points are because that's very valuable information to have.
So I have to go hunting to see what better mush points I can find. What's the how do I love the exercise?
Uh huh. Well, that's an example of trying to find your partner's mush points. You know, so like if I said, it sounds like you're married, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So if
8
I
years.
said, Michael, can you remember two or three times when you felt really loved
Mhm.
by your wife? You would be able to remember a couple times. And then I would ask you, well, what was she doing that helped you to feel really loved? Like, for example, if she was touching you back here, her knowing that that leads to mushness in you is really very valuable information for her and your relationship. Now, the same thing is true for me. My wife can touch me in certain ways, or there's a certain look that she gets on her face, and I feel totally loved. Now, if you can make your partner feel totally loved, it's much easier to communicate with them, and they tend to treat you a lot better. So I get really good at getting my partner into a place of love. And from there, our relationship takes off. But if you don't know how to do that, and your best way of trying to correct them is by showing them what they do wrong, well, you're going to have problems.
So we teach people a process here, kind of a God communication skill, automatic writing. One of
Uh-huh.
the things I get out of automatic writing often, it's kind of the life theme on top of slow down, breathe deep, all this good stuff, is take better care of Jessica. Help Jessica more, love Jessica more. What are easy ways, not so much for everybody to take care of my Jessica, but easy ways we can start to do this to put our partner, because the expression, if the mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. if we help our partner feel loved, we are going to feel so much better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's the love languages. You want to find out what your partner's love languages are. Like, do they like words of appreciation and love? Do they like acts of service? Do they like quality time together? Do they like touch? You want to find out that. I have an exercise in the More Love, Less Conflict book about that. Um, but I think the best foreplay and the best way to connect with your partner is little loving communication where you are getting to some depth.
Mhm.
In this culture, we've substituted quantity for quality. And 1,000 Facebook friends does not really equal one really good friend. So I have, for example, the 12 questions of instant intimacy.
Mhm.
And these are 12 questions you can ask your partner or really a friend that always lead to intimate, deep conversations. And people can actually download that for free at the morelovelessconflict.com website. And they're great questions. They're like magic incantations that you can take with you wherever you go. I was just on a plane and I asked one of the questions to the 11-year-old girl sitting next to me, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. It was great.
So, and what was the question you asked her?
Well, the question I asked her what gives you your greatest sense of joy right now in your life? And she, was talking about her reality. She collects dolls, certain types of dolls, and she's really into it. Now, this is not something I know anything about, but I really loved her enthusiasm, and I learned some um, about a world that I didn't know existed, really. She has like 217 dolls, and she makes money. She's actually an entrepreneur. She makes money selling and trading dolls for a living. She has
Very, very
55.
cool.
She's 11 years old. She's made $55,000. Yeah,
Speechless.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, on that note, one more of these 12 dandies of a question for us.
Well, another question in there is, what was your very first impression of me?
Ooh.
And people share that. That's kind of funny. Or uh, what's something you've avoided saying to me? That's a more challenging one.
Now that gets to an exercise that I found quite profound that's really tough to do in this society, at least. We've been trained for the opposite, the naked truth exercise.
Yeah, yeah. Well, some exercises that are hard to do, I suggest that people do them by writing them down.
Mhm.
So my wife had been married, and I have been married over 20 years. We improved our love life dramatically in a 5-minute exercise. And was it. Write down 3 things that you really love about what I do in bed,
Mhm.
and write down 3 things that you really don't care for that I do in bed. She gave me that sheet of paper. Wasn't that hard. I wrote down the same thing about her. And immediately our love life got better because I didn't know these things. It's kind of embarrassing to talk about them sometimes.
Mhm.
But now that I knew that she liked this and she didn't like that, I knew what to do. And the same with me. So that's an example of what I call the naked truth exercise. And when something's difficult to do, sometimes writing it down can be a lot easier.
Awesome. And so we'll segue from that and making lists to making a list of shared pleasures.
Yeah, yeah. Um, a lot of couples, what they do is they fall into a routine where they, always do the same thing on the weekend, or always do the same thing, a movie and dinner, whatever. So we made a list of 20 activities that we love to do.
Yeah.
And she made the same list, and we got to see that we had like 7 or 8 that were in common. Now, one of them was going to a movie, but we hadn't done the other 7 for quite a while. So we started to schedule those things. And, variety is the spice of life. So now we're doing a lot of different activities together rather than the same old ones. Once again, an exercise that literally took 5 or 7 minutes led to a lot more pleasure and depth in our relationship.
Awesome. So, in my early years of relationship with Jessica, I was a good person, but I wasn't the best in the relationship. Didn't do anything so-called bad, but I had a lot of emotional wounds and healing to work on. And that did not go so well for her. And so I had what I would call emptied out. Had I emptied out her emotional bank account, I'd emptied out the goodwill bank account for sure. What's an emotional bank account, though? How do we start to build this up?
Well, think of like you have a shared bank account, a bank. Let's say you and I open up a bank account together.
Yeah.
And I put in $100, and you put in $100. Now we have $200 in our shared account. Well, in a certain way, that's always happening with emotions. If things are going good, we have like thousands of dollars in our shared account, in our emotional account. If things are going bad, we might only have like $10. Now, life will sometimes require us to withdraw stuff. You didn't pick up the kids. How could you do that? Now I have to pick them up. That's a withdrawal. Well, if you have to make a withdrawal and you have nothing left in your emotional bank account, there's no goodwill, that's when couples get divorced. That's when couples say, let's break up. So I'm always encouraging people to keep making deposits because you never know when you're going to need a withdrawal. Now, there's in the More Love, Less Conflict book, I have a dozen ways to make deposits. One of them we already talked about, which is say appreciations to each other. Not ones you make up, but sincere ones, or giving empathy to each other, or even asking questions of curiosity. I never have couples come into my office and say, Jonathan, we really understand each other very well. That's why we want a divorce. But the opposite happens. We don't understand each other. That's why we want to break up. So asking questions of curiosity also in a certain way is a deposit into the shared account.
Is there one other way we can put a deposit in?
Well, speaking your partner's love language, my wife really likes hugs. Now, I'm not that much into hugs, but I think of it that every time I give her a 30-second hug, I just put in 200 points into our shared account.
Woohoo! Speaking of your wife, tell us about the higher self or guru exercise.
Okay. In this exercise, what you do is you allow your partner to play guru to you, or higher self. So you say, I had this problem. Can you help me out, guru? And of course, they say, yes, I can help you out. And you ask your question and they give you advice. Now you're setting it up that in this moment, I'm going to actually receive your advice. Now, what can help is that they wear a blindfold.
Wow.
Because when people wear a blindfold, they're not being triggered by you and your response. They're more going inside and trying to find the wisdom deep within themselves. And my wife used to never listen to my advice. But now we have this game set up where she can ask me and we can play the game for 5 minutes and then we can say, okay, that game's dissolved. She didn't want me to be a know-it-all all the time, but she does sometimes say, can we play the guru game? She'll ask me a question. I'll close my eyes or wear a blindfold. I pontificate my best answer. And she says, thank you. We're now done. And she will actually take that advice, whereas before she wouldn't take my advice.
Very, very cool. So I've got a note here in my notes that says, at this point, make sure I ask about doing a role-playing exercise. So Jessica, beforehand, she was so excited to have you on the show. She said, I've watched him do interviews. He does all this role-playing. I don't pretend to know what we're supposed to role-play here. Is there anything that comes to you?
Yeah, well, why don't you come up with an issue that you've had with Jessica or someone else, and I will then create a little vignette from it and role play it.
I went out this weekend to a try different bicycles event.
Yeah.
And I like nice, quiet social events. And I get there are these massive lines. There's some booming music. It's a spinny, out of control environment. And my first thought is, we don't need to be here. And we've
Uh-huh.
just gone through all this trouble of being here. And she's looking at me based on our past history, and she's going, I wonder if he's going to have a meltdown. Now, it's been years since anything like that, but she's getting all nervous based on our past history. What is
Okay.
a communication? I'm seeing that she's falling apart based on being afraid that I'm going to fall apart. And
You
we're
want me to
all,
play Jessica or you?
I guess probably play Jessica. I'm going to
Okay.
guess. I
Okay.
have no
So
idea.
I will show what I think Jessica should do,
Okay.
and you play you at your worst.
Oh,
So
wow.
we just got to this party, and you're complaining about it.
So I'm there, and it's this big event. All these tents, all this music. There's huge lines. It's cold. I've left the ID and driver's license at the car. Are you sure we should even? I just feel like I want to go. I just feel like I want to go.
Sounds like it's really loud and disruptive for you, and you are really looking just for some quiet, and this is really hard for you. I'm really sorry that's so hard.
Thank you. Yes, I feel like I'm torn in two ways. I want you to get to try some bikes. I'd like to try some bikes. I guess that's two ways already. And I just want to get out of here. It's just spinning crazy.
Yeah, and it sounds like it really makes you anxious to have all this going on, and I know how challenging that is for you. It's just really hard, and I think you're doing really well being in this environment and telling me what's going on with you, and I appreciate your honesty.
Now,
And is there anything I can do to help you to feel a little bit more relaxed here?
I love what you're saying, so I'm going to pause and maybe we even have to do a role reversal. As
Okay.
because of our early years, Jessica at this point has frozen up and locked down.
Uh-huh.
And so those aren't words at that point. I've hit triggers on her that even if I were at my kind and compassionate best, no, that's not true. That's not fair to her. This is interesting. How do I help? I'm not on my A game. I'm not on my B game. I'm on my C game. I'm on my amygdala game is going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Fight or flight, and I just want to flee. She's got a feedback loop that's going, oh my God, he wants to flee. How do I turn things around at this point
Uh-huh.
to be able
Now,
to calm us both down and get out of the loop?
well, you saw what I was doing playing Jessica. I was acknowledging your reality,
Mhm.
and I was giving you empathy and appreciating you. That will tend to calm anybody down.
Okay.
So if Jessica's freaking out and she's saying, "Oh, you always do this every time, and I just wanted to go out, and now I have to take care of you," and like that, what would you say?
I can hear and appreciate just how unsettling this is and how scary this feels when you see my eyeballs bouncing into each other and me starting to spin. I can appreciate how this feels. What can I do to help you right now?
That's a good example of what would probably calm me down. Now, in my wife's case, I know that a hug at that point would calm her down. So I would probably say, "Would you like a hug?" Or something like that. These little things, not many guys or many couples can give each other acknowledgement and empathy.
Mhm.
And they're often amazed at how effective it is to calm somebody down in 20 seconds that could have ended up being a whole 5-hour argument.
What do you do for yourself if you have triggered your own tiger lurking response?
Yeah.
How do you get yourself back into that centered place so that you can then be centered for the other?
Well, it's a great question. In the More Love, Less Conflict book, I have a chapter called self empathy.
Mhm.
Sometimes your partner has no empathy to give. You're not going to get it from them because they don't have any. They're at zero in the bank account. in those moments, what you can do is give yourself empathy. And it might be saying something like, at that party you were at, wow, this is a really hard environment for me. I often like freak out in these environments, and I really need to take care of myself. And I'm proud of myself for taking some time out and just taking some deep breaths now. And I wish that Jessica could give me empathy, but she's having a hard time too. So this is like the biggest challenge, and this is great because only by learning how to handle these challenges will I grow stronger in self empathy. And so far, so good. I just need to keep breathing slowly. It'll pass soon, and soon things will be back to normal. That would be one example. But the ability to give yourself empathy when your partner can't can really save you sometimes.
Beautiful. And on that note, you're accentuating the positive, aren't you?
Yeah, because what you focus on grows. So you want to focus on what is working rather than your freak out. If you focus on your freak out, then you'll get more freaked out.
Makes sense. So I want to take, Jonathan, I want to take my hat off. This has been brilliant. I want to take my coaching hat off. I want to put it on you so that people leave here taking action today for their relationship. What one homework assignment would you give people today to help with their relationships?
Well, I would definitely say spend a minute a day at least appreciating the people in your life. Ask yourself the question, what is something I could appreciate about them that they've done recently, or some trait that I appreciate about them? But also invest in themselves by learning these advanced communication skills. We never learn this, but that's what we're doing all day. It seems like if you invested an hour in learning some of these skills and everybody else around you doesn't have an hour, well, then it's going to look like you have a superpower. And it's not just for you, because you're also teaching your mate and the people you care about how to communicate in these better ways as well. So it's like a gift that you're giving to others to help them to get to more love and less conflict as well.
Woohoo! On that note, what advice would you give parents to help their kids today?
Well, it's really similar. Parents and kids tend to have the same level of happiness. So the best thing you can do to have happier kids is for you to be happy yourself. The best thing you can do to have your kids be better communicators is for you to learn how to communicate more effectively yourself.
Thank you. And on that happiness note, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Well, you said person, so I will say my wife. If you did not say person, I would say my two golden retriever dogs,
All
because
right, tell me
they're
about them.
pretty happy. Well, they're really cute. They're often happy, and they're just a bundle of love. And so I think dogs, or our pets, are here to help teach us to be in the moment and go back to a place of love.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So where can people go to find out more and to find your beautiful book? And we didn't even scratch the surface of all of the 10-second tip to me doesn't even sound like they're meaty enough, but all of the life or relationship saving tips in here.
Yeah, I noticed that you and I have a similar cover. I have a heart on my cover. You have a heart in your background. But I have a website, morelovelessconflict.com, and people can download the 12 questions of instant intimacy for free, or get the book there, or read the first chapter for free. So that's a good place to get it, or any bookstore as well.
Give us the URL one more time then.
Yeah, morelovelessconflict.com.
Fantastic. And I also recommend everybody go over to Amazon.com and leave a review for your book, because nothing helps an author more than leaving reviews. So on that note, before we jump into a brief meditation, any last words of wisdom that you want to share with people today?
Yeah, surround yourself with good communicators, practice it, and make love the target that you're aiming for as you get up every single day.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. On that note, would you have a meditation you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, this is a 2 or 3 minute guided meditation that will help you get back to a place of love. and it really quiets the mind and opens the heart very quickly. It's a great thing to do when you get home from work or share with your partner. If you can, close your eyes if you're in a place where that's okay. Take a deep breath, and then imagine that you can breathe through the center of your chest. That air is going out through the center of your chest, and you're just feeling your heart in the center of your chest, focusing and feeling in that area. Now I want you to think of a person or a child or a pet that you have great affection for. Someone now or a while ago, either one. And just choose one for now. Sometimes children's and pets are really good. And as you think about this being, remember a special time with them where you felt really connected with them. Remember what was happening and what it felt like to just feel your great care and affection towards this being. Think about what you love about them or appreciate about them. Imagine telling them how much they mean to you and seeing how happy that makes them. If you want, you can imagine hugging them or holding them in a way that helps you to feel even more connected. Feel your gratitude for having this connection in your life. Gratitude for the feelings of love and happy memories that you share. And just feel that gratitude and love in your heart and breathe into that. And when you're ready, take as much time as you need. Very, very slowly begin to open your eyes, keeping that sense of love and open-heartedness still with you, and bring that into your day. So that was just like 2 or 3 minutes, but it really changes how you feel. That's a great way to start your day, end your day, or whatever, is being in your heart.
Woohoo! Mush. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This has been fantastic. I love what you're doing. I love your energy. I love your open-heartedness. And I appreciate how much you see the big picture and you're sharing it with the world.
Well, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate what you're doing. And in this difficult time, we need all the help and inspiration we can get.
It absolutely goes both ways. So got to crank it back up for the finish here. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get more love, less conflict, and begin spoon tuning your relationship today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Jonathan.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You've been doing this for a while. You're good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. As have you.
It's true.
And my wife Jessica has just come in so that I can download all of the information you've given to me into her as well.
Yes. Give her lots of appreciation. She deserves it.
And hugs. Will do.
Okay.
Be well,
Take
Jonathan.
care. Okay. Goodbye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!